I'm ready.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. This is Crypto and Coffee with your favorite trading bros, Clutch and B. Wellington. We didn't do a whole lot yesterday price wise, but a lot of things did happen. We'll show you that a little later here on the Highball Capital just to show you how much liquidity and liquidations got moved around when price really didn't go anywhere. Really interesting day. But let's check to see if maybe we're going to get some more price action today and give you an idea of which way it's going to go. So, B. Wellington, take us away, buddy.
Yeah, man. So this is the daily on ETH, USD. We've had this cross. We've talked about this for a while, so it's just developing, like we've talked about. You've had this crossing of the 800 over to the 50, and this potential cross of the 200 and the 800 on the daily chart, and this move up to try to take out shorts that are anticipating this crossing here. So we had, one move up, move down, one move up, move down, because as we're moving up, you've got a lot of shorts that are starting to participate. And these are taking out those stops and taking out some of those liquidations for those that are using a little too much leverage in order to move forward. So, for those, just kind of depending. So we're at this critical point. We're here at this EMA. And so we have, we tried to bust through that EMA. We'll see that on lower time frames. And we have it. And so we've kind of played around and bounced in between this range here. But I do anticipate at some point we have moved back down in order to take care of this wick here, as well as probably explore some of this space down here. That's normally how this happens. And as you can also see, we haven't really had any volume come into the chart as well. RSI is also at the top of the range. But if you see this, we have falling volume as the price goes up, which is a good indication there's really not a lot of participation liquidity in this. This could change if we had some major players that came in and begun to start buying and drive that price up. But just according to the daily volume that we have, it seems like this rally, you want to call it that, is starting to move to the downside. If we hop over to the hourly, I'll get into my other chart here on the hourly. We're still doing fairly well in the sense that we bounced off of this 200 on the hourly. We've got a vector that's come through the 50. So all that would tell me is that we're headed back up to the upside. And I think we talked about that yesterday, that we potentially get a bounce, come back up into this area here. And then if we do get up into this area, what's going to happen there? If we do start getting some vectors and bust through this area, which is that 1280, which is the peak of this area. There's probably some longs that are still trapped up here. So we'll probably get up here, maybe pull back a little bit for those longs. But ultimately, we also have the 800 here. So if this does begin to bring some volume to the table, I would expect that we get up into the area of 1465 and touch this other EMA, which is close to last week's high. So again, these are numbers that we haven't seen in a while. I mean, we've been there just last week. So, but all this, potentially looks like it's playing out to get to that upside. But as we know, when things look like they're going to do something, sometimes they don't. So what I anticipated is we come back here, we bounced off of this area. We're going to move back up into this area here, and depending on what that looks like, we'll see if it breaks through. Otherwise, if he comes back up here, probably if you get some vectors in this area, and then you get another vector to the downside, a lot of selling that goes after a large vector, then this is probably a trap, which then would make sense, because that would then bring us back into these areas where we do have vectors candles. And this is kind of the pattern that they like to perform. If we rarely look at the 6 hour, but if you look at the 6 hour, there clearly is a W that's forming on that. Some could say that this is the W here. But really looks like the W is going to be here, but it may play around a little bit. So you go up, kind of get into this peak, come back up here, trap, move that back down, and move that back down to this area. This is the trend line from the larger downward action that we've had, a larger downward trend that we've had. And so potentially, if we get down into this area, we'll look to see, but I think we're, maybe later on in the week, maybe even next week for that, since this is a 6 hour. If we go to the 14-minute, which kind of talks about, today, one of the things that I did do is mark off some of the sessions. I know this indicator has the sessions on it, but sometimes it's not as clear relative to those sessions. So this is what New York did last week. And so here we are, above that, or not last week, yesterday. This is yesterday's session. So here we are above that session, after, kind of not New York, Asia. I can't talk today. Australia, Hong Kong kind of brought it back down. And so UK has kind of brought it back up. And now we're above the range that we set in yesterday's session. So if we look at things like OI is building. I think a lot of that building is coming off of shorts. If you see this increase as this increases as well. But if you also compare that to some of the funding rates that are out there, I would say that most of this volume that's out there is coming in short, but I think it will also be mixed. A lot of the charts that we're looking at show mixed volume shorts and longs, and there's a lot of confusion in the market. We also have our Dow futures that are up, which the market's already open, so let me refresh that. And man, we're up, right? So 400 points for the Dow, Nasdaq's up. All this is positive for a downside move because most of the time, early on in the session, when you have these strong moves, they tend to come down or cool down. Oil's back over $110. Bitcoin's up, so everything's pretty much up today. So a lot of liquidity coming back into the market. So we may have a little bit of a run, but again, when we have these runs, it's kind of difficult. Not runs, not difficult, but
movements up.
Movements up.
The good news that gets people on board.
Right, but they also can bring people. They also tend to trap people that way. So if we look at the news again, it's not surprising that we're pumping early on in the week. We do have some news later on in the week, relative to domestic demand. We've got some additional comments by Powell Chair, gross GDP revisions for Wednesday. We've got a big day on Thursday, PCE inflation, core PCE inflation year over year, real consumer spending, nominal personal income. So Thursday is going to be a big day. So it wouldn't surprise me if we pumped up for a couple of days for a retrace on Thursday as far as the news is concerned. But that's all I got on my end. But I do anticipate a little bit of a pump today, but I don't think we're going to go too far. I think Thursday is going to be a big day for volatility.
Very cool. Very cool.
Down here in Fudge.
Let's see what we got on my side. So let's check out Highball Capital. This is what I want to talk about on Highball yesterday, because when we got started yesterday, we were up here in the around the $4 billion range, if I remember correctly, $3 or $4 billion. And so again, price didn't really move a whole lot. We basically yesterday went from about 1233 down to about 1172. So you're only looking at $60 move or so. But that was able to take all of that $4 billion that we had. We even went negative for a minute on the cumulative liquidation deltas. Now we're back up here at 1.3 billion. We still have quite a few long liquidations below us, significant ones too, over 50 million. And we're gonna find those down there in the area of around 1141. So those are going to be key areas. If we start moving down again, we do have a lot of positive news out there. So I do think the microstructure is to get people long right now. That's usually a weekly trend that we see either half of the week be positive, half of the week be negative, so that way we can work with the market fluctuations. So that being said, we're sitting here right in the middle. We do have some short liquidations above us. We have stuff below us. Right now, we're sitting pretty much around that peak, around 1237, 1230, and we need to break that 1273 if we're going to expect some more movements to the upside. For the downside, the area I'd be paying attention to is 1167. If we break past that, do expect some more movement to the downside. But I do want to say this may be kind of just a choppy day, a bunch of ranging more like yesterday. They may be waiting on some news releases or whatever this is going to be to really get price moving. But I don't anticipate a whole lot of price movement today, but I do expect us to be testing these areas as well. So pay attention when we get up into those zones again, about 1280, and then right down here about 1162. Pay attention to what happens when we do get in those zones. If we get a bounce or we do the breakthrough, especially if you guys are in the trade and on the right side of the trade, be looking to either at least get your stops moved up to where you're in a nice profit when we're starting to test the outer ends of this range, or maybe you need to close your trade, whatever that looks like for you. Now, getting over here to the book map. As you can see right now, can you see book map?
I can see book map.
Okay, so we just came up here. We just had a whole bunch of people go long right up here at 1234. Some shorts got absorbed in that area. We did have a pullback, but again, hey, a lot of people went short here, and some longs got absorbed as well. So we're coming up here to retest this area. We will probably go down if we don't break out of this 1238 area. So do pay attention. We're testing that right now. Maybe we'll be able to watch this happen together on the show. And this move right here doesn't have any volume behind it. So a move with no volume is a really good indicator that we're possibly going to be just testing this area. And if we don't break through it, then we'll see some movements back to the downside, and we'll be going back down and approaching that 1170, 60 area that we were talking about just a few minutes ago when we were looking at the Highball Capital. Now, let me zoom out, and unfortunately we don't have any different news as far as long-term liquidity goes than we did yesterday. All long-term liquidity orders are to the downside, and so unless we get a lot of volume to the upside and a lot of movement to going up, I think we're either going to see just some hanging out because they need to get more people on board, or we're going to finally start tapering off. We don't have anything major till we get to about 900 for long-term liquidity on the order book. So I do think when we do break down, and if this does stay consistent, it will probably move down pretty fast if we finally get the breakdown that we've been talking about. However, like I said, I think I really feel like they're hanging out right now, and they may just be sitting here ranging, trying to get some more longs on board to trap them. So do be careful. And that's all I got. You got anything else you want to add?
No, I think later this week, Thursday is going to be a big day. So I do expect it just to range, right? Even if it breaks out to the upside, which it may do, because I think the PCE numbers, the inflation numbers are going to come in not very good. Or it may happen that day. It may break out the day before the news. And when the day after the news, like on Friday, they may come back and get all that back. So, just be careful this week, as you mentioned, because there is some news that tends to affect the market coming out later this week. So, that's always, you always have to be wary of that. But on the daily, I mean, we're at the top of the range because we have been chopping around in a range. We're at the top of the range. So if we don't break out, then we'll probably visit the bottom of that range. So that may be some good daily trading for you. But just when you're at the ranges, it's good to use those stops because you can keep those stops pretty tight. The risk reward's pretty good. So keep that in mind. Risk reward and stops are probably your best bet relative to being successful in trading.
Very cool, guys. That's all we got for today's show. We'll see you tomorrow on Hump Day. Same place, same time. Until next time, AM.